Hello and welcome to Sunnyvaleans, our premiere show. Today we are very fortunate to have the mayor of Sunnyvale, Glenn Hendricks. Glenn has grown up in Sunnyvale. He grew up in an Eichler, the Sunnyvale dream. He went off to the Marines, and when he came back, he started a family and bought another Eichler. He works at PayPal and ran for office in 2013 for the 2014 session of City Council, and he became mayor in 2016. Glenn, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here on your inaugural show, and thank you very much for having me.
Great. A lot of great things happening in the city. There's a lot of growth, plenty of jobs, sun is shining, but there seems to be a certain mood in the city that is inexplicable to the naked eye. Why are so many people griping about random things? When's downtown going to be finished? When is the traffic going to die down? What do you say to those guys? Tell us about the good things that are happening in the city.
I tell people, enjoy the time that you spend in Sunnyvale. It's really fabulous to be here. There are wonderful things going on. We have really good things that happen on a public safety side. For the second year in a row, the city of Sunnyvale has been ranked the safest city in America. You mentioned the downtown. That has been a challenge project for a long time, over a decade, but it's now moving forward. There's new developers in place. The new Whole Foods market has been announced as a grocery store that'll be in downtown, and we're expecting to see shops come up and new residential show up in next year, 2018. There are really good things happening in our parks, in our libraries. We're redoing our water pollution control plant, the largest public work project that's ever been done in the city of Sunnyvale. We're going to be able to produce almost 100% recycled water, and we're going to work out a deal with the water district. So instead of taking our recycled water and put it into the bay, we can go ahead and use it for groundwater recharging for our valley floor. Just a really great thing to do to protect our valley for what goes on. So I think there are wonderful things going on in Sunnyvale all the time.
I think so too, and part of the reason why I started the show is so that we could talk about some of those great things. The last thing you mentioned is the groundwater. Tell us about the pipe that's going down Wolf, is it? People have been complaining about that. The streets are torn. How did that go?
Well, it's gone fine. There was some disruption. It went much smoother than what people thought. What that's really for is the purple pipe system is for recycled water to be able to get it out to different parts of the city so it can be used for planting and irrigation work. And so that pipe is run up up Wolf Road to the new Apple campus. So it'll be able to provide recycled water there. But that's also the pipe that it will be connected to, that will connect to the water district, so that we could go ahead and use and channel the water up into the repercolation ponds for what goes on. So there's multiple uses to it. There was some disruption with the construction. We tried to minimize everything about that, and I think it was done in a shorter period of time than what originally was planned.
Okay. When can the average homeowner start piping into that water for their lawns?
It's not really configured for what would be individual homeowner use for recycled water. An individual homeowner would have to do a lot of work to get their house plumbed for a second source of water. It's really more at an industrial corporate level water.
Okay, that sounds good. So let's talk a little bit about the traffic. What's going on with all the traffic? Last year, whenever I had to go down 101 and try to get into Sunnyvale, quite often I'd have to take Matilda. But Matilda, I kind of feel like it's gotten better lately, the exit off of 101 or 237. Is that true, or am I just imagining that?
No, Matilda is actually much better. There has been some work that's been done with our new traffic center that we put in place, and some new automation that's gone in. Traffic is one of those areas that, first of all, it's a regional problem. It's not just a Sunnyvale specific thing. But we're finding that we can use technology to improve our light control system that controls the traffic lights and crosswalks to go ahead and improve the throughput and efficiency of the roadway without having to actually build more asphalt.
Okay. Is it true that there's infrared systems that can actually detect if there's a pedestrian in the road?
In a crosswalk, yes, there's new technology that can be put there. It actually works at a point where you no longer, if you walk up to a corner, you wouldn't even have to push the button. It'll detect that a person's there, set the signal so that they can go ahead and cross. One of the nicer things in terms of helping efficiency is normally a traffic light might set the crosswalk at 24 seconds, assuming a slow walker.
Right.
But if you might be a fast walker across that, it'll detect that the person has already crossed the road, doesn't have to go ahead and hold the signal longer, so then it can get back to going ahead and processing the automobile traffic. That goes ahead and increases the efficiency of the road and also provides more safety for the person crossing the street.
That's great. In fact, we do have a video for that. Let's watch Carmen Talaveras in the Traffic Control Center of Sunnyvale.
I'm Carmen Talavera. I'm a senior traffic engineer with the city of Sunnyvale, and this is our traffic management center. It was deployed last year in around August. Basically, from here we can do some travel time analysis. Also, through this max view system, we can see the status of our traffic signal networks. We can do some changes if we have to in case of a incident management, and we also have our surveillance cameras that we can troubleshoot some traffic related issues if we get a resident request. Our surveillance camera system allows us to see live video. We do not record any video whatsoever. So this area here is the Matilda 237-101 interchange. We call it the monster because it is 4 closely spaced traffic signals, and we have freeway and local traffic mixed. Back in early 2016, we deployed the pilot project for max view implementation. It showed that the reductions in travel time and delays went down to 58%. Google also did an independent study, and they were able to corroborate those results, and they funded about $250,000 for the implementation of Max View citywide. And we're about 75% complete citywide with the installation of the system. As you can see here, all the black dots are intersections that soon will be brought online. We basically want to make sure that our traffic signals are always working at the expected conditions. We want to provide a good experience or better experience for the travelers of the city of Sunnyvale and the drivers that use Sunnyvale as a pass-through from one freeway to another. A better experience. Congestion is not going to disappear, but we try to make improvements and do the best we can with the tools that we have in our TMC.
That sounds great. Thank you, Google, for $250,000. That's about half the budget for this project. What else can you tell us about this?
Well, I'm really glad you were able to show this. This shows an example of one of the things the city's able to do to really try and improve efficiency of the roadway. She mentioned, I think, the 58% of through the Monster interchange directly, but if the travel time to go from 101 up to El Camino is reduced by 38%, the traffic time on the whole thing. Another really good thing that it's been able to do is Maud intersection was another one where it had this problem of being able to make a left turn onto Matilda. It could never clear the queue there. Yeah. And with these changes they made, now everyone gets through in one cycle. So it really is an example of things we can do to improve efficiency of the roadway. And it also shows and highlights, I think you mentioned Google, the partnership that we have with the different businesses in the city who are trying to help us and trying to be good corporate citizens here in the city.
Yeah. Well, I said thank you, but unfortunately, the perception is, and to a large extent, the reality is that it's companies like Google who are hiring more and more people. The more people who live here, the more people who are on the road, and they're raising housing prices, and they're creating a lot of congestion and maybe even a culture misfit. What do you say to the naysayers who feel that it's just not worth it? I've even heard some people say, well, why don't we just get rid of the jobs? To me, that sounds pretty irresponsible. But what does the city intend to do?
Well, the city intends to go ahead and continue to be a balanced area. The city is always, if you go back to its early days of agricultural, and then it went into defense industry and software and high tech and things we have now, the city's always been evolving. There have always been jobs here, there's always been housing here, and there will continue to be. We need to go ahead and be prudent and appropriate in where we have our housing. This is why we just adopted our land use and transportation element of the city's general plan to go ahead and try and lay out and look at where are areas where we want to have growth. We'd like to see some more housing in the city, and this is where we've seen some industrial to residential transition areas that are going on. But it's really trying to take a look and go, where is housing or jobs growth appropriate? How do we try and put those housing and jobs near our public transit? That's why you'll probably see maybe more housing along the El Camino. As you know, the 22 and the 522 are the highest performing lines in the entire county on VTA. I'm also a board of directors on the VTA, so that's another area we try and look at, is really trying to look at how do we get people moving around better. How do we do traffic demand management at the job centers to try and reduce the single occupancy car vehicles that go there, spread out the traffic and make it a little bit easier and even for people to be able to get around.
Okay, well, you mentioned that you are on the board of the traffic people. Is it true that they're going to eliminate some services and try to consolidate the lines, or is that something you can talk about?
I can talk about that. We just had a board meeting last week where the board did vote to implement what is called their next gen traffic plan. And it really has to do with changing the balance or shifting the balance a little bit to more of a efficient route as opposed to a coverage model for what goes on. To be able to try and get, we've done a study and there are lots of work that's been done on this, that you get higher ridership and better ridership by having higher frequency lines on the same routes as opposed to routes that cover more places but don't have as much ridership. We're going to be at our next board meeting, we'll be doing the budget and fares that go with this. More than likely we're going to expect to see free transfers happen, because as now if we have higher efficiency lines that acts more as a network and crosses, people are going to be changing buses more frequently. That decision hasn't been made yet. That'll be next month, but I would imagine that's going to happen.
Okay, that makes a lot of people happy, but what about the people that it doesn't make happy? What about the people who were used to the idea that they were more or less the only two people on the bus? But how do you service those guys?
There still are buses close to them. It might not be on the house or the street right in front of their house. But it's really, we're trying to take a step back and look at the efficiency of the overall network, trying to understand what our ridership looks like and what ridership trends are. All transit networks across the country have been seeing declining ridership. And we're trying to work to make sure that we can increase our ridership so it improves the congestion management aspects across the county, but also trying to make the bus system and light rail system more financially economical.
What about the more out-of-the-box solutions? Can you coordinate with people to use social media, try to connect people by using commuter like commuter buddies or an Uber type service? Is that something that the transit system might be able to accommodate?
Well, the VTA does have what they call an innovation center, where we're looking at different pilots around those types of things so that we can try these innovative approaches to how to get people around. And that's really helping to try and look at what is first mile, last mile access into the hubs or pipes of the network.
Okay, that sounds great. One of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about was the way the city reacts the way it's supposed to. For instance, there was an apartment fire at Twin Pines, and I happen to have been one of the volunteers who helped at the community center when those residents were displaced, and I was really, really impressed by the reaction of the city. I expected to see the mayor there. I expected to see the vice mayor there. And sure enough, there they were. The city manager was there. The head of community services were there. I saw people from city council, certain members of city council, and many volunteers. I saw Marie Bernard, and everybody was coordinating and trying to make things better. So why is it that we don't hear about those types of wins? Why don't we hear about getting a big check from Google, or how everybody got rehoused after the fire? Why do you think that good news just doesn't get out?
Well, I can talk about the good news right now. The fire was really an unprecedented event in the city. It was over, I think, 100 families that were displaced in an instant of the fire. Fortunately, there were no fatalities or anything during that, and our public safety fire crews responded excellently. When I arrived at the fire, shortly after the flames were out, and started to hear that we needed to set up a Red Cross shelter, that was the last thing I ever thought I was going to see in the city of Sunnyvale. Those are things you see on the nightly national news if it's happening somewhere else. You don't think of it happening in your city, in your community. We set up a Red Cross shelter right away, and immediately had things put in motion to go, how do we go ahead and solve this? How do we respond to the people there? How do we go ahead and help our fellow residents to be able to try and do that? The city was able to work with Sunnyvale Community Services, many faith-based organizations, the Red Cross, to get people only in the temporary shelter for 2 nights. And by Sunday evening, everyone had been put up into temporary shelter, into a motel room, hotel, or something to go ahead and do that. There was great outpouring from the community to want to try and help with what goes on. And I think it was really just a testament to the character of the city. I tell this story, and I think this applies here. We have boards and commissions in the city of Sunnyvale, and people come in and interview with us.
Yeah.
And last year there was a woman who came in and she said that people don't just live in Sunnyvale, they participate in Sunnyvale. And I think what happened around the fire and the community output that came to want to try and help our fellow residents that were in such dire times as that right there was just a true testament to the city, and shows how people operate and people that really care here in Sunnyvale.
Well, it certainly proves the quality of the people who not only live and work in Sunnyvale, but Sunnyvale as a community and as a team. Right now, there's a little bit of a question mark over that teamwork. I understand that the biggest union voted for a strike. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, there was one of our employee bargaining units, the Sunnyvale Employees Association, had voted to take a strike. And I am really excited to say that we're not having a strike. The city and the bargaining unit were able to get together and come to an arrangement that's agreeable to everybody, so that we're not going to have a strike in the city of Sunnyvale. I call it a win-win-win. It's a win for the employees, it's a win for the city, and most importantly, it's a win for our residents.
Well, that's a good answer. Now we are going to have even more questions from, this time, the residents of Sunnyvale. So let's see how well you can answer those questions.
Hi, we live in Sunnyvale for last 9 years, and one problem we are facing, like why the aircrafts are going so low. It's like they're touching your roof and it's making a lot of noise, which is kind of bothering us for a long time. If something can be done about it, that would really help.
Okay, air traffic. So there are multiple different types of air traffic over Sunnyvale, and I'm not sure if he's referring to Moffett traffic or San Jose. Air traffic is controlled by the Federal Aviation Administration. Because that's a federal jurisdiction issue, we're partnering with and working with our congressional person, so Congressman Khanna's office. We were working with Congressman Khanna before he was Congressman Khanna came in, and we're working with them to try and see if we can work with the FAA to try and get and reduce the overall air traffic over Sunnyvale.
Okay, that sounds great. Let's cue the next question.
I really like the idea of extending Mary Avenue. I think Matilda gets fairly trafficy, and if we have to go up north, extending Mary Avenue would probably help a lot of people in Sunnyvale.
Okay, extending Mary Avenue. So it's a project, not everybody understands what it is, but Mary Avenue, as you're going north towards 101, it stops and doesn't go into Moffett Park. There is a project that's been on the books to go ahead and have an overpass over 101 for a long time. There are some people that are for it, some people who don't like it. The city right now is going through a study to take a look at what we're going to go ahead and do there and what we really want to have as a project. And it ranges as a project anywhere from a 4-lane overpass to a 2-lane overpass with bike and pedestrian, to a commuter lane only, to a bike lane only, to no project at all. And we're studying all of those projects. There's going to be an environmental impact report, so we have all the data. And I believe sometime later this year, the council will make a decision on what we're going to do with that.
Okay, well, I hope you have very good outreach this time, because that could help the residents not be quite so taken aback when something new happens. Let's go to the next question.
Hi, my name is Heidi Dunn, and we live in Lakewood Village, pretty close to Calabasas Creek. And we've had a lot of issues around the creek and the creek trail, the bike trail that my husband rides every day to work and back. And there's a lot of damage to the trail, and he has emailed the city and has gotten responses, but no action.
Well, first of all, I'm really happy to hear that her husband is out using the trail and
doing the city's work.
Well, no, out riding, and he's using that to get back and forth to work. That's what that is for. There's a lot of work that's planned right now on the East Trail, or the East Canal, to go ahead and improve the trailway there and stuff. I'll have to look in, do some research into this, but the trails are being improved along the creekways there, and I would expect that they're going to see improvements on what's going on there. And again, I think it's really fabulous that he's out using that as a way to get to work.
Yeah, any little bit helps, and definitely it will help on your your transit commission as well. Well, that is pretty much all the time we have for this particular episode, but thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your answers. And now we are going to ask members of the public to come and give us their take on what's going on in the city. You can reach us at sunnyvaleans.org, and anything you want to say, fair game. Just keep it, just don't use any potty mouth words. And now we're going to leave you with some inspirational video with a local resident of the city. They are going to show us how they fight evil in the city.